I want you to know, I know that you texted me and you were all passive aggressive and snarky because I was not here before you on the StreamYard. I've just been waiting for you to hit record just to call you out on it. Look, bitch, you're almost always late. I'm allowed one where I like took my time in the morning and I made coffee and I was running. I ran 4 miles before we were here, and then you're just getting all snarky and shit in my inbox, and I was
I
like,
am.
"Sir,
I
relax."
absolutely am. I absolutely am. And of course, the ironic thing about that is I get here, my microphone doesn't work, so I have to reset and restart, and
Uh-huh.
I do the whole thing
That's
anyway. So
that's
I am late.
karma on a cosmic level, being like, "Paul, you bitch, relax."
That was karma. Absolutely, absolutely was. I was like, just pissing your cereal a little bit because you're usually so early. You usually give me some crap about being there early, and usually I'm like, I'll be there in a minute. This week I was there on time, and you weren't, and here we are. But we're all here
Haha.
now. We're all here now. Welcome to Two
Mm.
Middle-Aged Geeks on Film. That's Middle-Aged
I am
Geek
your
number
host,
one.
PLD. That's PJ.
Or, strike that, reverse, whatever that thing. Yeah.
Yeah, what was that? Wonka, where
Oh.
he does that.
Yeah.
Dude, okay, I'm gonna say it right now.
Here we
That
go.
movie, way better than it had any right to be. That
Oh.
guy who directed Paddington 1 and
Mm,
2, he knows how to
mm.
make a fucking movie. And Wonka makes me cry every time I watch it. It's
I
so
have.
good.
This is a new one, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
have not
I'm
seen it yet.
only saying Wonka.
Okay, I was making sure. I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know.
You
I have
didn't see
not.
the Paul King masterpiece that is Wonka?
I did not. I've had no. I'm not podcasting on it, so I haven't had time to watch it. Pretty
We were
much.
literally just having this conversation.
I pretty much every movie I watch is for one podcast or another, so I can't choose anymore other than the podcast stuff I'm watching. This week is the first time I'm going to do that. If I can find time, I do want to go see Karate Kid Legends, even though I
What is
have.
time?
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous out there. But at least
I
I sometimes podcast something just to get like I really in my head. I'm like, let's do a podcast on this so I can actually make time to go see it.
yeah. I mean, we were talking about this before we went live, but I haven't seen Mission Impossible yet. I haven't seen Lilo and Stitch yet, which the as weird as it sounds, the fact that I haven't seen Lilo and Stitch feels like ridiculous considering, I have him tattooed on my arm and
He's
like I'm
right
the
behind
leader of the
you.
fan club. Yeah, he's right here too.
Yeah, that's
Holding
ridiculous.
I mean, I can't believe I haven't made it to the movies. I don't have time.
Yeah,
I'm finding myself just bogged down between work and making sure I actually keep up with the stuff for this. As
right.
weird as that sounds, but like we've been watching a lot and we're doing a lot of podcasting, and there's only so much time in the day.
Yeah,
And the truth of the matter is I've pivoted to watching more television
right.
when I'm not covering stuff for this.
It's easily to binge stuff. It's kind of funny because like I'll watch the same amount of TV as it would to be like a TV episodes as it
Yeah.
would have taken to watch a movie, but like it feels like it's a good, better background kind of like end of the night kind of thing. Anyway, like Kim and I started watching. We finished Last of Us, finally caught up on the Last of Us, and we started The Pit last night.
Oh
And
no, you're gonna become a pithead?
I might become. I am already. Like, I'm
I
three
had a
episodes in. I'm
feeling.
all in.
Oh, I love that for you.
Have you not?
Look, Noah Weil starring in ER2, more ERing is, probably good for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember hearing about that going, oh, it actually is. I really looked it up yesterday before I watched it. So it legitimately was supposed to be an ER spinoff. It was supposed to be Carter basically doing
That
so.
doesn't surprise me.
But they couldn't get the rights from like Michael Crichton's estate or whatever. They couldn't get the rights to ER.
And now they're suing them.
No, they just said, all right, forget it. We'll just do no, now they're doing that. We'll just do our own thing. We'll make our own thing called The Pit. And it's really it's really good so far. I'm impressed. And actually, the thing I like about it most,
It's
I had
really
no
good.
idea. I had no idea about it. Something that you'll appreciate is one of the actors is Fiona Dorff.
Wait, what?
Fiona Dorff is in this as one of the characters, lead characters.
Dude,
Yeah,
why is no one freaking led with that? I'd have been watching this show if I had known that.
she is great. I barely even recognized her at first when she first came out. I'm like, she looks familiar. And I'm like, oh my god, that's Fiona Dorff. And it's like it's in a non-Brad Dourif property, which makes me so excited because like
Yeah.
she did so well in the Chucky series, but I'm like, I don't know if you'll ever see her outside of a Brad Dourif property. I'm like, I don't, you know what I mean? Kind of like it's one of those Nepo things. And even though she's not Nepo because she's very talented, I really enjoyed her in Chucky. I'm just glad she got something like on her own.
I love that. I had no idea she was in it. You know what the funny thing about that is?
What's that?
Did you see that Shout Factory did this big 4K sale
I did see that
last week?
Yes.
I I shouldn't even say it out loud, but I'm going to anyway. I 100% splurged on that because all the 4Ks were 50% off. I bought the entire Child's Play series on 4K. The
I
entire like, all the movies on 4K.
I love that for you. I really
Yeah,
love that for
and
you.
you know what? I'm not even mad at myself for it. I'm not I look, it's very important preservation work to
Oh,
own all the
100%.
Chucky films on 4K.
Yeah, you know what? In Chucky we trust,
In
so
Chucky
I'll
We
go with that.
Trust. I
But real quick, I wanted to throw back to the pit for a second. Like the funny thing is about us saying Bjorn Dorf's in a non-Brad Dorf property. I looked later on, and Brad Dorf does make a guest appearance in a show somewhere. I don't know
Are
when,
you
early in the
serious?
season. And guess what he plays?
I hope it's her father.
He plays her father. The
I
character.
fucking love that.
I'm all in for that.
I
So,
love this. See, if everyone look, I blame AJ. AJ has been talking about this in our fantasy chat for so long, and now I'm just sitting here going, "How dare you not tell us that?" Because I would have
right,
been watching this immediately.
100%.
Diego Crespo should know better. That
Yes.
fool, come on.
I had no idea. I'm like, okay, that
You're
is
the
the
only
character.
person who is now like led with that enough where I'm like, well, cool. I guess I'm gonna actually make the pit mandatory viewing.
Well, I'm saying that because I know you, and I know it's going to draw you
Exactly. That's what I
in.
mean.
So there
Someone
you go.
I've waited my whole life to be so well understood that someone out there would know how to speak to me in those
Mm,
terms, and you
mm,
just did it.
that happened actually during our film watching list today too, and I can't wait to talk about that aspect of it.
Look,
Um,
I'm never not gonna be horny on main for Christopher Maloney. It's
I,
just not gonna happen. It's there's the man crush is strong on that one, man.
I actually specifically, I watched the film a little bit earlier than you did. I didn't. I watched like a couple days before you did. I specifically didn't text you about that because I just wanted to see you get excited about it when because I knew when you rewatched it, I was going to get a GIF of Christopher Maloney somewhere along the line. Just text it to me. I knew it was
Yep.
happening, and you did. You fulfilled your honor, duty of obligation, and yes,
It
we are
means
there.
so much to me. I want you to know how much that means to me that I not only I saw it through, and you didn't even tip me off to this.
I did not. Nope.
And the fact that I'm also just so on brand that you knew that was gonna happen, like, days before makes
Yeah.
it so much funnier. And this all for everyone wondering why this is a thing, it all goes back to, like, early COVID, when we were all in lockdown and Paul and I would be sitting on calls, and I'd be watching old episodes of Law& and Order SVU, or then, like, I'd be just in my bed watching, and I'd just be sending just GIFs of Christopher Maloney over and over and over again. Yeah.
You know, we
Maloney's the man.
all
We got
we
our
all have
things.
we all have those actors. You know, my big Ed Harris. You have your Bruce Campbell. You have Christopher
Jeff
Maloney. I
Daniels.
have Jeff Daniels. I have Jonathan Groff, who I always
Yeah,
tout. I actually tout Brad Dourif more and more recently too. So that's the one I'm going to throw in there for
yeah.
me. We
And
all
of
have our
course, we've
actors.
got the Harrison Ford. We share the Harrison Ford of it all.
Yes, we definitively share the Harrison Ford anytime he
Yeah.
appears on screen. Which, by the way, was interesting, and Kim noted this too. Yesterday, I was watching A New Hope for the first time in a long time, episode 4.
I was thinking
Uh,
the first time, I'm sorry, what?
for some a long time.
Uh,
For Holy Snokes, we're covering it this week or next week now, whatever, on Star Wars or Holy Snokes because we've been doing the Andor trilogy, Andor, then Rogue One, then A New Hope,
nice.
and it's amazing how time marches on. Watching a recent interview with the Real Rejects did with Harrison Ford, which God bless them, they got a chance to talk to Harrison Ford, and they
Right.
absolutely deserve it. Wonderful people. Seeing Harrison Ford now at like 80, whatever, and then going back to him like his like 30-year-old prime or 29, whatever how old he was for A New Hope, and
Yeah.
man, time marches on. Time just marches on.
Yeah. But he
But
remains undefeated, no
he
matter how
really
many
does.
times time has tried to stop him.
Really does. And I will say, I loved watching again. It stirred something in me, like this, like complete childhood. I don't know. I just felt like so. I had a big grin on my face the entire time the movie was on.
I love A New Hope.
Yeah,
I know that's so basic, and I know
it's
that it's really popular to say that Empire is everyone's favorite and
uh,
et cetera, but, like, there's something so wonderful about the simplicity that is A New Hope,
yes, it's
and
kind of
it's just
innocent,
so yeah, it's innocent and childlike, and, I mean, obviously, I know that, diehards don't wanna hear this, but Star Wars is not aimed at adults. Like, I mean,
right?
adults watch it. We clearly all like it, but
Yeah,
it's a childhood fantasy series. Like, that's the point. It's
yeah,
made for kids. Lucas
100%.
never pretended it wasn't. And so there's just this like childlike wonder and awe and innocence in that movie, in the same way that there is in ET, in the same way there is in Hook, like that those late 70s, 80s, 90s era Spielberg, Lucas, Amblin type
Gambling, yeah,
things. Yeah, it
100%.
just it hits different.
100%. I will say, actually, the funny thing was I was really looking forward to it because there's been this like, weird social media backlashes. There always is how like A New Hope can't like Andor is so serious and the tones can't match up and yada yada yada. And I'm like whatever. This is actually a series, by the way. It went from Skeleton Crew to Andor, and they both did okay. But I watched it, and I'm like, I watched the Andor into Rogue One into A New Hope. Now, yes, is there a tonal shift? Absolutely gets there. Like Andor to Rogue One is a tonal shift, and Rogue One to New Hope is more of a tonal shift as well.
Mm.
But the story feels just as seamless as it ever did, and it felt like it was all still part of the same universe. Sure, is the more like uplifting? Is the tone? Is the darkness more? Like I said, less oppressive, but it's there. Everything's there. I mean, you got
Yeah,
Luke's uncle and aunt burned to a crisp on the farm. You have
yeah.
like all the whole planet destroyed. You have Leia being tortured. Like it's not as like vehemently in your face as it is in Andor, but it's all there. It's just a
Mhm.
little bit of a different tone, and so it fits a lot better than people give it credit for. And some
Oh,
people don't.
absolutely.
I'm like, get the hell out of here! Shut up! Don't. It's just I don't know why you have to be
Well, it's
divisive.
almost like people just feel like they have to be angry about Star Wars
Yeah,
all the time, and it's really exhausting after a while because it's
100%.
like it's it's a series about space wizards and laser swords, guys. Like I really don't know why we're acting the way we are about it, and I don't know. I'm
It's
just
funny.
glad that you enjoy it.
Absolutely. It's funny
And
to
you
me
know
because,
what's
like, Andor it's real quick, Andor, like, because Andor, which was a phenomenal TV show, probably some of the
right.
best written Star Wars we've ever gotten, not gonna lie, hands down. But because of its serious nature and basically no wizards, no lightsabers, and all that kind of stuff, it's treated like a prestige series, which it is. But like it's all of a sudden, for some reason, it's also got this like curse because now it's like everything else is just not worthy of it. And it's like, no, it's not.
That's not how it
Oh,
works.
that's not how it works. This wouldn't exist without the first stuff anyway. And you can love both stuff in the same. That's a perfect Star Wars for me. Give me all sorts of different palette colored things to give me a horror Star Wars, give me a whatever,
Yeah.
give me a like as
Give me
Tony
a
Gilroy said, a
comedy.
courtroom Star Wars, give me a comedy Star Wars. Absolutely, I love this kind of stuff. Just throw it all out there; it can all fit. Just don't be arrogantly like dismissive of everything else. That's what pisses me off. But
Well,
I
it's
digress.
funny too because I was thinking about this while we were talking about it. And do you ever think about the loudest people about the sequels where they're like, "Man, the sequels just undo everything that happens in the original trilogy." And I'm sitting there thinking about, boy, Empire really undoes everything at the end of A New Hope, doesn't it? Because I mean, all for all intents and purposes, the Empire is defeated
Mm-hmm.
at the
Mm-hmm.
end of A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Like, i- I'm just saying.
Right, the way it's set up initially, yeah. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a room for it to wiggle, but like
Yeah,
because it was
but
set
it
up because there's only that could have been the only.
right, and if it had been the only one, it would have been okay. At the end of the day, it is what it is, like, we have these movies, and when you make sequels, it's one of those things that you're going to run into. You "retcon" things, quote, unquote, but it's just so funny because I just think about that all the time, that people get so mad, they're like, "I can't believe it undoes all of it," and it's like, I mean, that's just kind of movies.
The funniest thing to me about it was the idea, like the people about, especially the Last Jedi haters. And I don't like honestly. I think Last Jedi is a beautiful movie, and but I think it's not perfect, and that's
My
fine.
number 2, and that's
Um,
okay.
that's fine. And but like a lot of the big complaint was that it wasn't the Luke Skywalker that would have been, and blah blah blah. And also, the funny thing is, you come to find out later on that George Lucas's proposed storyline that he had given to
Was the
Disney
same.
had the exact same thing, for at least for Luke Skywalker aspect of it. So
Yeah.
get the maker says happen. So maybe you should go see if you're gonna like proclaim that the George Lucas Star Wars is the only Star Wars. That was directly from George Lucas. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
deal.
Well, and honestly, he was gonna be worse, it sounded like, in that some capacity, because they kept comparing him to, the character from Apocalypse Now,
Right? Yeah, yeah, that's right.
that
So
Marlon Brando played, so you can only imagine how like, the performance could have even been like crazier and darker in some capacity, had they gone even further with it. But at the end of the day, I also think people just want to hear themselves talk. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like I grew up reading the Legends books, as
Same.
we all did. If you're of a certain age, that was all we had. And the truth of the
Right.
matter is like outside of that initial Thrawn trilogy, most of the Legend stuff isn't that great. And the storyline for Luke especially is not that great, and
Right.
they kinda overpower him and it kind of misses the point of the end of Return of the Jedi, and
Right.
that's the thing that I appreciate about The Last Jedi, and what Lucas was clearly going to be doing was, like, leaning in on the end of Return of the Jedi and, like,
Absolutely.
pacifist Luke.
I love that aspect for him, absolutely. And like
Yeah,
to me, like there's the whole idea, well, he would never have raised his lightsaber to Ben Solo, that his nephew, blah blah blah. Blah. I'm like, motherfucker, did you watch Return of the Jedi? That's what he did.
but
He's
also
impulsive, and he stopped himself. Like that's the thing. He learned by stopping. He had a multiple impulsiveness, lightsaber, and then stops. Like,
and we also have to remember whose version of the story is right. Because there's a big point in The Last Jedi is that everyone's version of that story is a little different. It's a Rashomon thing. So
hundred
we
percent.
never actually understand, like, the idea being they Kylo could look at it one way, Luke could be looking at it another way, and we never like really fully see the picture while also Luke taking accountability for his actions.
Right,
But
hundred
Kylo
percent.
refusing to understand that. And I love that. Oh my yes, welcome to Holy Snokes 2,
About
the
to say,
Snoke where we talk about all things Star Wars. No, I mean,
we've
look,
threatened to do the
you
Star Wars franchise on here, and it could be something we eventually do. But
we keep kicking it down the road though, because I don't want to start kicking a hornet's nest because of this, exactly this, because
right,
I'm going to start waxing poetic about The Last Jedi, and I'm going to do that thing that always sounds mean, where I think you just don't quite understand what happened in that movie. And I sound like such a dickbag when I do that. I don't like saying that about people, and I don't like saying that, but, like, I genuinely look at it sometimes where I'm like, "Okay, but
it's
did you
true.
watch the movie?
Right?
Like, did you watch the movie? Because
I,
if you watched the movie, you might be understanding it a little bit better."
yeah, I don't think he did. That's the way I look at it. I don't think you watched the same movie, or you wanted to see something and you didn't see it. So all of a sudden, everything else is wrapped around your that version of your story, and it doesn't work that way, my friends. It doesn't work that
It
way.
sounds like a delusion of grandeur to me.
I like what you did there.
See, I really aim to please, which is something that in 2013 WE tried to figure out how to do with their Zack Snyder directed superhero film Man of Steel. Look at that segue.
You're getting better.
Uh,
You're getting better and better every week.
yeah, I try my best. They got an all-star cast coming off the, unfortunate, and it's weird to say this. We talked about this last week during Superman Returns. There's this weird after the fact thing we've done over the last 20 years that pits Superman Returns as like this box office failure that no one liked in all of these things. And then you actually look at it, and historically speaking, and in the context of it all, Superman Returns was actually in the top 10 movies of the year when it came out. It made quite a bit of money
Yeah.
and was actually critically quite well received.
Right.
It has a 76% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is it is a tool, not a barometer, but it helps point you in a direction of 76% of critics said, this is actually a pretty good movie. We recommend you see it. Cool, great.
100%.
So it's weird that we've created this mindset around that movie that has talked about it was this huge failure. And it's perpetuated because the WB kind of said it that as much and started to move into Man of Steel. Now, granted, they're also only chasing Man of Steel because Iron Man came out in
Right.
2008, and they decided that they needed to also have their version of the MCU. And they didn't think that starting with Superman Returns a sequel was the way to do that, and they wanted to start from scratch. Zack Snyder was coming off the hit that was 300, and they figured, what the hell, give that dude the chance to shake up the what is it, the hierarchy of the DCU? That is
Okay,
that the
Dwayne.
way that yeah
Dwayne.
the Dwayne Johnson of it all.
Yes.
We will not be covering Black Adam. We know that Henry Cavill appears at the end of it, but that is not technically a Superman film, so we're not going to talk about it.
If we didn't cover Supergirl, we're not going to cover Black Adam.
I'll say I do like that sequence involving Paint It Black, though.
Yes, I'll give you that as well.
Might be like the only good scene in that entire movie, but that's fine. So after Superman Returns comes out, they all kind of go back to the chopping block of everything and say, Superman Returns 2, you are no more. It is killed. And so the chopping block is taken away, and they move on to the drawing board, which is Man of Steel, which is going to be this more grounded, serious take on the character, closer in tone to Batman Begins. Christopher Nolan produces the film. Kind of what you're anticipating. David S. Goyer, who also was involved in the Dark Knight trilogy, has come up with the story and has written the screenplay alongside Christopher Nolan with the story credit. And Zack Snyder directs a film starring Henry Cavill, Amy Adams, Michael Shannon, Kevin Costner, Diane Lane, Lawrence Fishburne. Basically, all these people who are who's who of people you recognize from things. And of course, America's own Christopher Maloney, the most important actor in the film. So we get this hardened sci-fi take on the Superman mythos, which is also not like out the gate supposed to be the first film in this universe.
Right. That's
it's
a big
supposed to be its only thing.
Because quite frankly, if you look about it, part of the reason what happened was we have Superman Returns. They were going to have a sequel based on that. They're going to have a sequel to Superman Returns. But when Superman Returns kind of, it didn't do very well, I think WB had to pivot at that point for a couple of reasons. And they said, we can either do that, we can either try to continue on this line to do something else, or we can look at the Nolan Batman trilogy. We can make the Superman version of that. So it's not supposed to be the beginning of the DC. It's actually almost supposed to be connected in a way to the Batman Begins trilogy. Not like in the same universe, but at least tonally. But it has much in line than that than being a universe starter like Iron Man was or whatever. So it's kind of a weird hodgepodge of ideas of what they wanted to do. Business-wise, I kind of understand why Warner Brothers pivoted. Superman Returns tanking like it did in a way or not doing very well kind of made it like, well, we have to do something else. This worked. This has at least Christopher Nolan's name behind it. If we can get
and Christopher Maloney on screen.
Christopher Maloney on screen. I'm sure that was spot on WB's mind. I'm sure that was the main thing. We got Maloney. We can do it. I'm surprised they didn't make Maloney Superman. But
oh, dude, now there's an idea. There's an idea.
Not quite sure he has the hairline, but he'd make it work.
He would have made a great Lex Luthor, though.
He could have done. Who also been a great Lex Luthor?
Bryan Cranston.
Ed Harris.
No, Bryan Cranston.
Ed Harris.
Okay, fine.
Give me this. Just give me it.
Yes, I'll let you have it.
Okay.
Fair enough. You're welcome.
Fair enough. You're going to name drop Maloney. I get to name drop somebody. I can't name drop Jonathan Groff as Lex Luthor yet. It doesn't quite fit. Although, you know what? Honestly, maybe he could do a good job too, depending on how.
He'd be a better Brainiac, though.
He would be a great Brainiac. He would be an absolutely great Brainiac.
Yep.
So.
Oh, I know. You know what? Actually, Jonathan Groff is the toy maker. Make it happen.
Yeah, that I can see work.
Let's really lean on the weird. Let's really go for it. You're right. It is this hodgepodge though, and it won't even become more apparent, obviously, until we get to BVS, which is the next film we will be covering, because Man of Steel comes out. It does also fine.
Yeah.
But critically, it's more derided, and reception-wise from fans, it's real split, and it causes this rift for WB to start to panic, and they decide that they need to do BVS as the next movie, and things go out the window real fast.
Because they see the Avengers idea, and we have the Justice League, we can do our own thing. But instead of doing what Marvel did and build it out, they panic quickly and go, we got to get that now. We got to get DC up to where Marvel is. We're behind. We have to skip steps. And what happens when you skip steps, usually things don't work out very well, which is what happens in this case. The problem also comes when you're trying to all of a sudden when you pivot and make this start of a universe, it's hard to make this film a start of a universe when in and of itself, this film, and it was one of the main reasons I know how divisive this film is, and we're gonna get into this. I know I like it more than you do, but this is an Ultimates version of Superman. That's how you have to get
It's
kind of
the
watch it.
Superman Earth 1
You have to watch it that
or Earth
way
2.
because this is not the Christopher Reeve style of Superman, which was a more commonplace. That's how Superman is in the comics. This is not your comic book Superman, and it's
No,
not
it's
necessarily a
sci-fi.
bad thing if you can get over that. And I think a lot of people have a hard time getting over that. Understandably, if you want your like, this is not my Superman kind of thing. If you can accept it like I did, I think I have a lot. That's why I have a lot more fun with it overall. But at the same time, it's like if you can't have an Ultimates universe be your movie universe if you don't already have a universe to be Ultimate from. In a
Right.
way.
Well, and I think that the hard sci-fi nature of it really is off-putting for people because it's
Absolutely.
no longer a comic book film. And
Mhm.
that sounds weird, right? But you watch it and it's kind of not.
Yeah.
And it's structured just like Batman Begins. It
Yep.
feels just like Batman Begins. Here's the problem. You know who's not Batman? Superman. And I
Superman.
yeah, like I love
Look at that.
the idea about this. I like the idea of the structure. I think my problem continues to be that it feels like a rough draft out the gate that like they needed at least another pass at the script. Because every time that something really good happens in the movie, it's bogged down in the next scene by something incredibly dumb.
Right.
And it's becomes really frustrating really quickly where you're like, "Oh, some of this is really good. I'm sorry, did Jonathan just say that Superman should have let all these kids die? I'm sorry. Like, so hide your powers, save the dog, let your like it's all these little things throughout the movie. And then you finally get to the third act and it's Rock'em Sock'em Robots, the movie, and it becomes less interesting because to that point, there's actually no action in the movie. And then we turn around and become the
You're not
action
wrong. You're not
movie.
wrong on it though.
Right. And I don't mean it to come off as
I
cross or mean. It's just one of those
right.
things.
I know you don't. And that's how it's funny because like we actually mentioned this last night too, and I could be guilty of this. We always, when we like something, we find stuff to reinforce our opinions on it, and
Oh,
sometimes things
sure.
work better for us than they do. For example, some of those things work better for me, like the Jonathan line, for example. I know a lot of people have a problem with Jonathan Kent, and I understand it. I understand it absolutely. Like the line about like maybe you should let the kids die. I I understand as a face of value that that is not the Jonathan Kent we know and love. Again, Ultimate's version, I can accept that a little bit. What I like about it is to me, it presents Jonathan as a different character. Jonathan's not the simple farmer who's raising, who's instilling his morals and values into Clark. To me, this is a story of Jonathan Kent being a scared parent who's just in well over his head. And I don't think he really means to let the kids die. It's more like a case of he's saying, maybe is an I don't know what the best scenario is in this case. I know I need to protect you because I know the world's not ready for you. I don't know what that means. None of us know what that means. I can guide you only so much. When you ask me these hard questions, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. Maybe you're supposed to. Maybe that's what's supposed to happen because that's what we have to do. I don't think he really wants him to do it. It's kind of one of those kind of give and take situations where he's
Yeah.
exploring his own thoughts. And that's how I read it. That's why I accept it a little bit more in a way. He's definitely not the Pa Kent that we know and love from previous Superman cases. Again,
Right.
it's that give or take on I accept it a little more easier than you do, and other people do for sure. I get why people
Well,
don't though.
and I 100% see what you're saying, and I feel like if the movie presented that more to me,
Right.
I'd understand it more.
Right.
And I think that it kind of runs into some of the stuff we talked about with Superman Returns and like Lois Lane as a character.
Mm.
I feel like the movie presents her struggle a little bit better than I feel like this movie presents Pa Kent's struggle. And that's because we spend more time with Lois and Clark, though, in that movie than we do with Pa and Clark in this.
I
And
understand that. I would actually just throw back a really thing. I had more of a problem with Lois and Clark in Superman Returns, the reason why is that is so definitively in that universe that those are established characters for me. So
Sure.
that's why it's difficult. This, I feel like I'm looking at new versions of these characters. I'm a little more able to accept
Sure.
them.
I just wish that the movie presented it better.
Sure, that's fair.
And,
That's fair.
and like, if we had had another scene also, say them actually just spending time together, right?
Mhm.
And you also get the like him trying to make the good natured version of him also, I think I'd
Right.
feel differently. And that's what
That's
I
fair.
mean about this feeling a little bit like a first draft at times, is that there is stuff that like really works. I actually like the opening on Krypton, and I know that that is not a popular opinion. That is a thing that is quite often derided.
Right.
Um, when it
It's a
comes
definitely
to
it's a sci-fi Star Wars opening, or Star Wars Star Trek.
yeah,
I mean, it's kind of like a lot of people had problems with the Star Trek reboots because it didn't feel like Star Trek; it felt more like Star Wars. In this case, it's somewhat similar. This is where it shows you right off the gate, we are doing a sci-fi movie. We're not doing necessarily a superhero origin story at this point.
mhm.
This is a full-on sci-fi movie, and we spend a long time in Krypton.
And
Like we
it's
never
about
spend
30
this long in Krypton.
minutes.
Yeah, there's big Jarrell scenes, big battle sequences, and everything else before we even get to Clark. Clark's the hero of the story. We don't even get to him right away until much
Mhm,
later on. I enjoy it as well as you do. I like the establishment of Michael Shannon. What a great casting choice that was.
mhm.
Um,
He's great as
and
Zod.
I think Russell Crowe is a pretty much a pretty decent Jor-El in the lines of
Yeah,
Marlon Brando had been a little more active, obviously, than Marlon Brando because you're getting a little more action from him, and that goes throughout. We get him obviously as the AI version of him as well, is much more active than Marlon Brando ever could be,
yeah.
for sure. By the way, Russell Crowe, father to Superman, Craven, and Hercules.
Uh-huh.
In comic book world, Russell Crowe is wow. That's a strong
Russell
seed there, I
Crowe
guess.
is just a murderer's row of giving birth to babies,
Love it.
super babies,
Oh,
space babies.
Space Babies. That's another podcast we have to talk about eventually. But
Mhm, mhm.
um, I do love also the idea of like where Superman in the 70s had that retro, or 70s early 80s had that retro futuristic feel like Star Wars did. This is the first time we're getting to see a modern take, and this is a modern futuristic, and that's why it's definitely off-putting to some because some people have this set in mind, like the ice sculpture, the Hoth Lake ice sculptures. That's what Krypton was to them, and now this is very much just a I will say I understand that you can play where it looks a little more generic, and to me, it looks like it's actually from like Riddick, if anything else, kind of thing in a way. It's more along those lines of modern futuristic, but it works for me enough because the characters are there that are there. The story is engrossing enough to me that I'm all in at first.
Yeah, I really it's so funny because I ended up finding myself so taken by this sequence in particular. Um, I think it's really flashy in a good way. This is Snyder actually using his visual effects for good in a lot of ways that I think the movie doesn't necessarily do throughout. And I think a big part of that is because Krypton allows for a very different feel and a very different look.
Right.
And he gets to really play with it. And I really like that. It's really visceral and you're really caught in the action. And when we pivot to like the earth-based stuff, he's still a very good director, don't get me wrong. There's something about seeing it on this other planet and the way that it plays out that feels so much more enthralling, and I find myself more sucked in versus like again, I know that you're trying to replicate the Batman Begins feel. And I know that you're trying to do a lot of the stuff with, Clark being the nomad who is like trying to find his way and he doesn't want to be Superman yet because the world's not ready because that's what he's told. But the way it's shot sometimes doesn't quite work with that. Which makes because there's a lot of handheld, like trying to put you in the shoes of the moment, but it doesn't quite fully work.
Right. Right.
But you know where
Right.
it
I
does
mean,
to that point is the sequence when Zod shows up above the Earth and does the transmission for the first time. Because
yes,
that's great
absolutely.
because it feels again more like a horror movie. It's a sci-fi film at that point. These aliens have arrived and now here we are. Like how small do we feel in that moment?
I can get on board with that a little bit. I understand that. I mean, let's put it. I mean, we might get this out of the way now. Zack Snyder is a very, very divisive filmmaker. So
Oh, yeah,
he has
you
his
think?
zealous fans. He has these fans that are absolutely think he's the greatest director in the history of mankind, and you have people who can't stand a single film that he's done or anything else. And so it's interesting to watch his film. They definitely either way they always spark a reaction. He's definitely not just one of those filmmakers you just kind of watch. You have an opinion. I'm of the opinion I actually love a lot of Zack Snyder's stuff, but I definitely understand he has his weaknesses. And his weaknesses are in more the storytelling aspect of it than the visuals. I think his visuals, his concepts are absolutely brilliant most of the time. I love watching him work. I understand where it falls flat for some because he kind of expects you to understand things more. He expects you to be like not to worry about the details as much to get to the story points. And that can be a weakness for some. For me, the concept and visuals get me over the hump. So I'm able to
Mhm.
get there, which is why I like it. I like to interpret some of my stuff myself and I like to look at it. It makes me like Jonathan stuff. I look into it more because I do like everything else surrounding it. But this is where this movie starts becoming divisive for people in a way. The sci-fi horror aspect, those allow for his spectacular visuals to really kind of
Mhm.
show what it's doing. Whereas the normal Batman Begins style stuff is not really much of his strong suit. And that's
Yeah.
where I understand why you would see it that way. I think conceptually this movie is right out the gate the line that's not dissimilar from something that's been said before. Um, when Jor-El and Lara are talking and they something is like he'll be a freak. He'll be an outsider. And his like Jor-El just turns and says, he'll be a god to them.
Mhm.
And that is the line that Zack Snyder has used like as his entire concept. This is not a superhero. This is a alien who is a god amongst men. And what does that mean for him? What does that mean to Earth? And almost all the visuals forward from this and going forward in Batman vs Superman as well as Justice League are all kind of based on that concept. What do
Yeah.
we do as a god amongst men? And it's an interesting concept because it actually does work. A lot of Superman stories are about how Superman is human. He's an
Right.
alien who's more human than human. This is taking it the other way. What if he was an alien that was more of a god? How does that work? I think that's an amazingly interesting story. That's why it carries me throughout. I get
Sure.
why people don't love it.
No, no, no. And here's the funny thing. I actually do get it, and I do like it to a point. And I actually think one of the more interesting aspects of that becomes in BVS, a guy who is a man amongst men, who is Batman, who for most men would like consider a god amongst men. How
Right,
small does a guy like that feel when an actual alien now is on Earth? And like
right.
there is something to be said about that. Um, it's interesting because I actually think that aspect works more than it doesn't. I just I think it's just the scripting still and just the
Okay.
structure that it kinda undoes some of that for me. Again, it I'm gonna sound like a broken record. It feels like a first draft. Like, it felt like they were just trying to get this movie made and didn't quite, like, spend more time with it,
Hmm.
and it's the one odd time that we've never gotten, like, a director's cut of a Zack Snyder movie, where I'd be so curious to see if there was another version of it that existed that could have massaged some of the stuff that frustrates me, because
Right.
I find that a lot of the director's cuts of his films ultimately massage a lot of my bigger issues. Whether it's the Watchmen director's cut, not the ultimate cut, but like just the director's cut that adds, the extra footage in from the movie without the animated stuff,
Right.
where some of the character work is now a little bit more like fleshed out enough that
Yeah.
it lands a little better. BVS, where we actually get all the Superman stuff put back into the movie, or Justice League, et cetera, et cetera. Like every one of his director's cuts has been miles ahead for me in some capacity in character work.
Right.
And it makes me wonder if this movie had because it's already almost 2.5 hours. Was there a version of it that was a little bit longer that also allowed for more time with the characters that allowed some of this stuff to breathe more? Because this movie feels like it is rocketing to get to its ending from jump while also feeling like kind of on slow motion at the same time. It's a real weird give and take. in
Yeah.
how it's paced and plotted.
Well, the interesting structure at the beginning is fascinating to me too. They don't Most Superman films go from point A to point B to point C, and as we get Clark's birth, we
Right.
get Clark's young Smallville days, and then we get young Clark joining the Daily Planet and everything else. We get, in this case, we start with adult Clark being the Nomad, and we kind of get these flashbacks as we go along. And I actually like that structure. I like the idea of what they're doing with it because it shows you, because we're introduced to the Superman we don't know much about. Like, we don't know Superman as a nomad. We don't ever get that story about where
Very
Clark
rare.
was between Super Smallville and his appearance in the Daily Planet. We never get that. That was usually pretty skipped over, generally speaking. So here it is. We're getting to see some of that as a focus point, and then we get to fill in the gaps with the earlier moments. And there's some great times during that for sure. I kind of feel like it works in some ways to do it that way, but again, I understand also that it could be structurally off-putting to some people.
Mhm. I just it's just such a and I know this sounds weird, and it's not just that it feels different for them doing it this way. I also just think it just feels so strange in like the points where they make those moves
Mm.
don't always land. And I'll say this, Henry Cavill gets a lot of flack for his performance. I don't think he's the problem.
Oh,
I've
really?
never felt like he was the problem. And it that goes through Justice League, whether it's the theatrical cut that we ended up getting or the Snyder cut. I think that those movies actually showed him really fully becoming Superman, and I'm really bummed out that he didn't really get a little better shot at it. Um, Not that I like this movie more than I might let on, and I'm not trying to be hard on it. And I like the Snyder Superman more than I think more than people think I do.
Mm.
Um, but I also really wish I had gotten to see him directed by someone else. Um, and I know that Chris McQuarrie pitched a Superman sequel with Cavill in mind,
Mhm.
obviously. And it bums me the hell out because I would have loved to see a Macquarie written and directed Superman film with Cavill because their work together on Fallout is really remarkable.
Right.
And I really think that with the right director and the right writer, his Superman really could have rivaled Chris Reeves.
I don't disagree with that at all. I honestly think this goes back to Zack Snyder's concept in that, like, again, we're used to the Christopher Reeve, more human Superman. This is an alien Superman, and that's what Zack Snyder wants Cavill to portray. And I think he portrays that very well. And I don't, if there's any accusations about his like lack of humanity, he still shows humanity during a lot of moments. There's some great
Mhm.
human moments in there, especially from Cavill. And when he does make that decision, when he finally decides to be Superman, it becomes a different story. And I think that's exactly what you mean. You're going to get the Cavill, the Superman you always kind of wanted with Cavill. We just don't get to see it enough as the Snyder things move on. He needed another sequel. He really needed a
He
sequel
did.
without the Batman versus Superman. Like that should have been like if you want to do that at all, at least give him a Man of Steel before you go to Man of Steel
Yeah.
2 before you do that. Hell, and we should have gotten a Ben Affleck Batman story first as
Oh,
well.
100%.
That's how you should have done it. Like you could still skip some points. It could have been like Man of Steel 2, Batman, and then do a Batman versus Superman if that's what you wanted to do. But like skipping that step just really hurt it. I think overall, we'll get there though. So, that's next time.
It
Um,
it's such a bummer that I feel like so much of our conversation is gonna be like, "Tune in next week where we really break down why this kind of falls apart,"
right.
which is weird because I actually like BVS quite a bit,
I
but
do too.
BVS's biggest problem is that it is also the turning point where all of this stuff goes off the rails
Right.
pretty much immediately.
Right.
Um, and the biggest part of that is Cavill as Superman because he
Mhm.
should have gotten his own sequel.
Right.
Um, One of the things I really appreciate about this movie too is it does the thing that I always want them to get out of the way now, and it seems Gunn is also doing it. I'm so glad that Lois knows who Clark is,
Mm.
like early on, and we
And
don't do the like, who is Superman with her? Like, we don't need to
the
do that. The Chris
glasses.
Reeve
Yeah.
films have already done that so well.
Exactly.
Yeah, we
I
don't
thought it was an
need.
interesting take this way. Like they like instead of like Clark going to the Daily Planet and finding out, like she was an investigative reporter, which is what she does, and it's her intelligence and her drive that leads her to figuring out who Superman is before she even meets him. And
Yeah.
that's a great twist of the story to me. That shows
Yeah.
that heightens up Lois Lane. I think Amy Adams is great Lois Lane choice. Honestly, she gives it the performance that Kate Bosworth couldn't quite pull off. I think.
Yeah, I do think Lois gets a little lost in the shuffle as the movies go, but I think
Yeah,
Amy Adams is really good in this. I again, I'm gonna keep talking about the next movie. I I wish that I wish their relationship got explored better.
great, great. We get a little bit in the like. Luckily, the Ultimate Edition helps that out a little bit
Yeah,
more, but like at the same time, when he introduced the Batman side of things, all of a sudden it becomes a crowded place. Like you can't have the supporting characters; you got to have like the main characters. That's the thing. Like, their supporting characters take a back seat a little bit. That's why we never got a great, Jeremy Irons as Alfred moment. Honestly, really, because he didn't get a chance to really have much of the time to do that.
yeah.
At least Amy Adams does have this, which does establish her very well, and I appreciate what they do with this. But I get what you mean exactly. I wish we had more of a chance to get to explore that relationship further on.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that seems lost in the shuffle, but I do appreciate that we turned her into this intrepid reporter who is trying to figure out who this guy is. And I
Right,
like that she chases all these like local legends, and that's one
right,
of the things that the movie does really well is like establishing all these little spots where Clark has been, where she can
right,
go talk to certain people to kind of basically she shakes the tree in the hopes of finding him. And
right.
I like that aspect quite a bit. I think it works more than it doesn't, and it just shows that she's a great reporter.
And it makes it also kind of makes a little bit of a I was like, let's make a mockery, but it kind of one of the biggest things is, oh my God, Superman has the glasses on. How does he do it? And Christopher Reeve does a great job of doing the posture and making it look really well. But it always kind of still doesn't pass a sniff test. We appreciate his efforts, and that's why it works for us. But in this kind of more grounded take of Superman, it makes sense that Lois would a reporter as good as Lois Lane would be able to do that and uncover it.
Yeah.
It would be you would be able to easily fool her. And so it's much better to cut that off right from the get-go. And she does find out who it is. She leads it back to Candace, gets to talk to Ma Kent even before she talks to Clark, because she also knows that that's what's going to be the thing that draws him out. If you also go to Ma Kent, okay, now I have to talk to you now because like you've come a little too far for me at this point. And that's a
Mhm,
great aspect of the story for me.
mhm. I really like it. I think it works really well. Um, and again, it's interesting to handle this more as like a first contact movie of
Right.
sorts.
Yeah.
This idea that they find a down spaceship that they think is a submarine, and like that's kind of where their paths start to cross.
Right.
This idea that Superman is involved quietly on the side. He's just helping the US Army who is like around here,
Right.
but it's because he's pretty sure that that ship probably belongs to his people.
Yeah.
And I like all that. I think it all works. And of course, this is where, Christopher Maloney shows up, and the movie is now exponentially better because Christopher Maloney as Nathan Hardy is now here. And man, made me happy.
I knew it would as soon as
Yeah.
he came on screen, and I'll be honest, it makes me happy too. I think he does a great job in this movie. Like, he
He's
always does a great
really
job,
good.
but he's really good. It's a great character too. They actually have a great arc. Him and Clark have an arc. Obviously, like he's at the point first where he's military first. He's in charge. He's like just properly dickish enough to be like in charge without like. But everything he does has a reason. Like you know what I mean. Like it's nothing that comes across as like overly. He's not a power hungry guy. He can be a dick about it, but it's all got comes from a good intention place.
Mhm.
But that moment at the end, which we're going to get to during the third act, where he gets saved, he sees him, and they have that like kind of showdown where Superman in costume, and he looks at him, and he just goes, "This man is not our enemy." And it's like that's a greatly well-deserved moment for both of them. It's a powerful. I love that moment.
Yeah, well,
Um,
he really delivers the line in such a perfect way too,
yeah.
because that he does that like subtle pause before he says it, and then
Yes.
goes, "This man is not our enemy. And like
Right.
even Clark looks at him and, thank you, General. And just it's so good.
Yeah.
Um, we also get introduced to Harry Lennox as Calvin Schwannick, who is later retconned to be John. Yeah,
Martian Manhunter, John Jones.
Yeah, John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, which actually it's good casting.
It is.
The
It
bummer
is.
is it's a weird retcon, but I'll allow it because it's good casting.
Right.
Richard Schiff as Emil Hamilton is in this,
Love that.
which I'm always down for more Richard Schiff. This movie is very similar to Batman Begins, has like such a who's who of character actors where you toss them in because it grounds the world in a more realistic way. And I know that was Snyder's intention. That was why he got Kevin Costner and Diane Lane, because he wanted people to see it as like a serious film with serious actors, which also feels a little backhanded, if I'm being honest, in like some sort of way, because we can't pretend that like we didn't have Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart also doing comic book movies,
Right.
Like,
Right.
look, I like where his head's at, but that's again, also, you had Michael Caine and Heath Ledger and like all these people
Right.
in comic book films. Your movie is not standing out for having these actors. It's just nice to have a group of actors that good in one movie.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with
And
that.
I need that to be like, dude, my man, you're up here. I'm gonna need you to bring it down here because that's crazy. That's fucking crazy. When Patrick Stewart is like a Shakespearean actor and he's also Charles Xavier, like get your
Right.
shit together.
Absolutely.
I do like this portion. One of the things that I noticed, and I hadn't really thought about it before, it's interesting how much of this movie is also clearly David Goyer watching Superman 1 and 2 and going, now I'm going to pick this part from Superman 2 and I'm going to put it here. And this from Superman the movie and I'm going to put it over here. And then I'm going to twist it just a little bit. But like they just take scenes from the other movies and try to ground them, including the dude bro douchebag that
At the waiter,
at the
the diner. Yes.
that diner with the waitress, which is just a moment from Superman 2 done more
Absolutely.
seriously.
Right. I loved it though. I actually liked it. It
No, I
made
like
sense
it
in
too.
the thing,
I'm
but
just
I agree
saying.
with you 100%. Although it's kind of funny, it's in a way. Did you notice? Maybe I did. I think James Gunn is doing a nod to that himself in the trailer of the can thrown at Superman's head kind of thing. I feel like visually that was like a similar aspect to it. And we know James and Zach are friends, no matter what the internet decides they want to tell us about.
Right.
I think that's a great aspect to it too. I like that as well as like a way to show the nomad Superman who has to try to learn to control himself. He can't quite like knock because he could knock this guy's block off. Instead, he destroys his truck, which I think is a funny visual. And it shows where Clark's not quite. That's still like a young Clark thing. He hasn't quite had that moment. When he puts the suit on, that's when he becomes more of the Superman we know. At this point, he's still a little feisty. He's like the time like back in like the original Donner films when like he's like, he's gonna run past the train and beat his friends there to show off a little bit. He's still got a little bit of that impulsiveness at this point. It's just a little older for it, but I appreciate what they're going for it.
No, and that's the funniest thing about this movie is that Cavill looks so old.
I know he does.
And not like in a mean way, but like
No,
for us to be doing the young Superman thing,
right,
you're kind of like, what do you mean young Superman?
right,
Like
right.
what? And I'm going to be honest with you. One of the things that they run into, and the MCU was really smart about this, right? While Iron Man felt like it was the first film in a world where superheroes didn't exist, they very much end the film with the tag with Fury going, no, you're not special. Like,
Right,
this is not new.
right,
And so it's weird in hindsight for them to do all this when Wonder Woman like happens. And Batman has been running around for literal years.
right,
You
right.
know
So
what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah. Again, I know it's more of an alien invasion thing, but super heroic people are not unknown to these people also.
Right, and that's partly a case of after the film made, they're
Oh yeah.
trying to break it. That's what that is, unfortunately. Oh, and you don't have things planned out like they did, and that's some kind of stuff that's going to happen. I was like, oh yeah, well, what were you doing there? Wonder Woman's around World War. She's there. Batman's been doing this too.
Twice at least
That's
that
right.
we're aware of.
That's right. 84. That's right. Technically
Yeah.
speaking, at that point.
Like,
So
I mean, she fucking
yeah,
went to the White House and saved the White House, but
right.
whatever.
It is what
It's
it is.
cool.
That's cool.
It's one of the bigger bummers about as this series progressed. It Man of Steel actually is a pretty good jumping on point, but it is as quickly kind of unwritten by everything else because every
Yeah.
decision made moving forward undermines the film in some capacity.
Right.
And that
100%.
also sucks because it's one of the rare times where I do think the stuff that they do later on affects how I look at it. And
Yeah.
that's rare for me.
Right.
I can usually separate that, but because it was also there's no easy way to say it. So I'm just going to say it because we're going to have to talk about it for the next 2 weeks anyway.
Okay.
The drama for everything that happened around these films was
Mm.
so upfront and so loud, and all the changes, get good or bad or otherwise, by outside producers, outside directors, what have you. It really hurts in a lot of ways because the stuff that Snyder was doing now in hindsight, because we have seen where it would have gone to some capacity, it actually makes so much of what happened more frustrating, and it makes it hard to watch these
Mhm.
because you can see the ideas, you can see where it's going, you can see where even when he was making choices he necessarily wouldn't have wanted to, but was doing. And it could have worked better had they just allowed it to happen instead of second guessing everything he was
Right.
doing. And I think because of all of that and how the story beats go and some of those things, it makes this movie feel like a ground zero incident.
Which is funny to me, but you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Oh, I know.
It's funny to me because I would say it is there definitely a sourness attached to it because the whole drama around it you mentioned, is there's nothing good about what happened in this drama. Obviously, the
No.
studio got involved. They started panicking and doing stuff more, so it wasn't hitting exactly the heights they wanted it to hit. Obviously, Zack Snyder had his unfortunate tragedy, which
Yeah.
it feels like again. I'm reading between the lines here, and I don't know exactly how it happens, so I'm not saying this is definitively how it happens. But reading between the lines, it seems like Warner Bros. Might have used that tragedy as a way to impose what it wanted to have happen and bring in Joss Whedon for the Justice League, who had just
Yeah.
had the big Avengers movies and everything else. That's obviously like they basically said the thing out loud. We want to be Marvel.
Yeah.
We want to have a Marvel, and this property wasn't Marvel. Marvel had a very specific tone. This one was pretty much the opposite of that tone. So you
Mhm.
can't just like shift midstream or especially mid movie and try to make it that way. Um, Now, on the other hand, I'm going to call a spade right now too. Is the fact that we have the Zealotist brother. They're still around today, and
Oh yeah.
restore the Snyder, restore the Snyder. And like the funny thing is, I am actually sympathetic to the initial cause, like in terms of like I would love to have
Yes.
seen the full Zack Snyder. I would love to see what would have happened in Justice League 2 and how he would have done it. I would love to have seen him be an architect of bringing in Wonder Woman, bringing everything. Let it happen. I would love to have seen it happen. It's over, folks. Though it's over. You got to move on
Look,
at this point.
here's what I'll say. When you give a mouse a cookie, et cetera, WB made a choice.
Right,
It was the right choice in hindsight to at least finish
right,
the Snyder cut.
right.
I will never not be sympathetic to the fans of those movies that we didn't get Justice League 2 and 3.
Right.
It's fucking over.
It's over.
Like, there's no world, guys.
Right.
It continues. Attacking other filmmakers is not better.
Oh yeah, that's the worst part about it.
Attacking other talent is not better. Use your time better. There's no good that comes from this. It's the Star Wars conversation we've had in the past too. Like if you're over Star Wars, cool. By all means, the door is that way. Like we're not an airport. You don't need to announce your departure.
Right.
It's good. Like you like what you like. let other people also enjoy a thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that any good comes from people doing the not my Superman, not my director, not my franchise, et cetera,
Right.
because at the end of the day, you may not like it, but some kid down the street watched the 2010s RoboCop before he ever saw the first one with Peter Weller,
Yep.
and that kid probably loves the Peter Weller RoboCop, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Or the non-Peter
The
Weller
non right.
RoboCop, and
The other
that's
right.
okay.
Yeah.
Like, it
Absolutely.
is. It is okay. You don't have to like it. That's fine. Yes,
Right.
I am also the kid down the street who likes that movie, but I also saw the Peter Weller one first.
That's fair.
Um, I just think that we really need to not be that way about stuff, and I had a really hard time with this movie when it initially came out. I did not like it when it originally opened. I went to the midnight show. I really did not like it, didn't like it tonally, didn't like the feel of it, didn't like Cavill that much in it. But I was also willing over the last decade to continue to rewatch it and willing to like work with it. And I've learned over the last decade that I was a lot harder on this movie than I probably should have been. Um, while also still contending, I think that its weakest points are very weak.
Mhm.
Because I don't think that the structure is completely there. I don't think the writing is completely there. I think it needed at least another draft to get across the finish line to work a little bit better. But the stuff that works really well. And I am willing to credit it with that now.
Good, yeah.
And that's the adult thing to do is admit
100%.
when you were wrong.
I will say this quite I wanna say 2 things. I wanna say, first of all, going back real quick to the idea of this being soured by the Snyderverse drama or whatever, I will say for me, this film isn't as affected as much because I do wanna feel that, like, no one really this isn't usually as much in the discussion. It's usually Batman versus Superman, and it's usually Justice League are the big moments. This is kind of like a almost an outlier to a degree. I get where it's affected by some people though as well. I also
Yeah.
want to touch in though the idea what you just said, and I always have touted that I think most films can use a good rewatch. Because some people like argue against it. You should be able to watch a film. You should be able to watch a film and not have to rewatch it to get it. You should be able to take it as and that shouldn't be a case. But sometimes it's not the film. It's sometimes it's you. When you go in with a certain expectation, a certain idea in your head about things, about what things should be, and it comes across differently. It's not necessarily the film's fault. I don't think it's necessarily your fault, but you need your viewpoint readjusted. And so when you go in the second time, you're like, okay, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Now I know that. Let me take this in for what the film is trying to do. And a lot of times when you do that, you find that, like you'll come across with, okay, this wasn't as bad as my initial instinctive reaction of, oh, this isn't what I thought. This is what I thought it should be. It wasn't what I wanted or whatever. And it's a humanistic thing. It's a natural thing. Get that moment in there. Now you're like, okay, yeah, I still see some of the things I don't like. I still wanted it to be this way, but this is telling me a story I can at least jibe with on some level, and it's much better than I initially thought.
hmm Yeah, I think that it's actually good to be able to go back and rewatch things and readjust like once you've seen it, readjust your expectations, take it for what it is, not what you want it to be. And actually over the last decade, I've really learned to go into movies to take them as is and not what I've been thinking that they should be. And I think that that is a thing that the internet has not quite figured out yet,
Right,
because I frequently see people talking about movies in a, well, I would have done it this way.
right,
Okay, well, that's great, but they didn't. And
right,
you don't have to like every decision, but try to at least engage the film as it is, not in your head canon way.
right. Absolutely,
You know?
absolutely. Uh,
And I think that this movie in particular, is that movie for a lot of people because this movie feels like it was the one that really kind of broke the internet in that capacity,
yeah,
because I think people really they say they don't want Chris Reeves the Chris Reeve version of these movies, but also they're not willing to let the franchise not expand past that. So
yeah,
then when it does try to expand past that, they get weird. And so then everything that comes around kind of falls apart because of it. And you look at stuff like Smallville, and Smallville 100% leans on be the Chris Reeve version, be the Chris
Right.
Reeve version, be the Chris Reeve version. Okay. And they do that, and it runs for 10 seasons. But like when it comes to the movies, people are real weird about it.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm very curious. I've been very pessimistic about the Gunn movie, not from a creative standpoint, though I do still contend there seems to be a lot happening in it. I like the trailers, but there's a lot going on.
I'm worried.
Yeah. I'm more worried about the reception to it. And where like will audiences finally be willing to accept a new Superman? That is my curiosity right now.
Yeah, no, I get that as well because I feel very similar to that. I've loved the trailer so far. I think they've done the right thing. They leaned in on the John Williams score. They're going all in on the aspect of it that we don't have to do the origin story anymore. We are in a world. I think James Gunn. I think at the same time, I think it is the right decision because we've
Yes.
had so much history with this character already. We've had so many movies involving the character. Something that hasn't been done is you put it in a completely comic book world. Zack Snyder made the ground and tried to make the more grounded version. The Donner version, while still fantastic, still had a sense of groundedness because movies at that time were afraid to go full on comic book nerdy. So it's still kind of like we're going to be a superhero story, but we're going to try to do it in a still somewhat grounded way. Like, and we're trying to make this serious because if we went too far into the comic book, it would be like the Batman 66 TV show. We would be forgettable to people. Not forgettable. I said that comes out wrong because I love Batman 66, but it wasn't taken as
Right.
seriously. Kind of
Yes.
as that goes. So Gunn's like, you know what? We are here. We can do it now. Let's full on give you a comic book Superman with all of the weirdness, with all of the outliers and everything else, and see what we can do. There's that danger though of the definitely being stuffed with all these like do we need a Guy Gardner, Mr. Like all these characters and I don't know if we need that yet. But if you're going to establish Superman as a character in a world full of superheroes already, that does happen. These characters do show up. It all depends on how you do it. Gunn has been able to do a very heavy ensemble piece with Guardians of the Galaxy and everything else, so he can do it. But Superman is no Guardians of the Galaxy. Or I should actually say the other way around. Guardians of the Galaxy is no Superman. It's a different style of movie.
Yeah. Now,
So
here's something interesting, by the way. So I noticed this last night actually when I looked up Man of Steel. There's a box set on digital that comes up that has Man of Steel through the Flash
oh, interesting.
on there, but you know what it doesn't have in it? Gunn's Suicide Squad.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm very curious because I know we've talked about it a lot. It's also missing Birds of Prey. So what's interesting to me about all of that is that it kind of makes me wonder because we've talked about it a bunch before this. Like how much of that stuff is considered canon now to this new universe? Because
Right.
now we're just going off track instead of talking about Man of Steel. But the Peacemaker 2 trailer
Right.
really leans on this idea that the other universe
Multiverse.
is a multiverse thing because we
Right.
see another Peacemaker.
Right. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. I know where a
Oh
lot of
no.
people are tired of the multiverse, and I get that multiverse, but you can have a multiverse without have it being the focus of your story.
Yes.
And we are in an interesting place. And yeah, we'll get back to Man of Steel. I promise. I will. I don't want to go too far into this category. This is almost a different podcast. I will say that it's a unique case in which the guy who is taking over the universe and starting a universe over, like in his image, and this is our new DC movie universe, happens to be the same guy who actually directed a film and a series in the old universe. So of course he's going to want to make his things part of it because he's the creator. That's his stuff. He's going to want to have that involved. So it makes a lot of sense in my mind. So you either have to rip the band-aid off and say those things are not canon. We are starting completely fresh, or you have to find a way to massage it. Which I understand why you would want to do. I don't know if it's the right choice personally. Maybe you should just say, you know what, screw it, we're going to go forward with this, and that's all that's going to happen. But I appreciate and understand the ambition behind it. I think it could work. We're going to find out, I guess, in a way.
We are. I just I thought that was interesting. I meant to bring it up earlier because it's a box set that has most of the DC movies from that era, and it also has Flash and Fury of the Gods, but it's missing other things like Suicide Squad, and
Right.
you're just like, huh,
Right.
fascinating.
Yeah. What are they
And
doing here?
what are they doing here? And like Gunn has been so kind of cryptic about it, and also said that Peacemaker season 2 would ultimately explain it. And he's also been unwilling to call it season 2, which is very
Right.
interesting.
Right.
Um, yeah, so we'll see. Anyway, Man of Steel. Um,
Back. Where were we
we're
on this?
back. I'll say this. I really like this movie's first 2 acts. Even if I don't like all of the character work, obviously, with Jonathan, I
Right.
hate the tornado thing. I'm sorry, I will
You know
never
what?
get behind the tornado thing. I
Let's talk
can't
it
do it.
now. Let's talk that right now.
Okay,
Let's
let's
get
talk
because
it
that
now.
was my thing. Because maybe you're going to be surprised to hear me say this, but yeah, I don't like that either. I've never liked that.
Right?
And I'm someone who actually defended it before a little bit. I kind of defended it before, but watching again, I really get to the point. I understand what they're going, what Zack Snyder is going
Yes.
for. I understand the idea is you are trying to hit us over the head with Jonathan does not want Clark to reveal himself because the world is not ready for Clark. The
Yes,
world is
we
still not
understand.
ready for Clark. We get it. But doing this just is a stupid way to do it because
It's bad.
it makes no sense that Clark wouldn't disobey. Clark would disobey on this particular point. You can tell
Yes.
different things, maybe, but he's gonna save him. It doesn't matter, and he could do it so quickly you wouldn't even know. People wouldn't even know, and he would be able to do it
Yeah.
without having to worry about it as much. I just think it's a horrible way to have Jonathan go, and undercuts the best part of Jonathan's previous death. Jonathan's previous death was obviously in Superman the Donner films and how they did that.
Yeah.
Having the heart attack be something that Superman could not prevent. That was
Well,
the
in
best
this
story of Jonathan Kent. This is something that Superman cannot prevent his death. He can prevent this death, and he doesn't. That's
Smallville also does a great version of it.
yes, 100%,
The
absolutely.
him deciding that he's gonna save Lana, and it like effectively being he saves Lana in the end, but Jonathan dies because of it
Right.
is
Yes.
really good.
Right.
And like, because I think they did that for the 100th episode. That was the point, was that it was like that big turning point of the mythos, as it
Yes.
were.
Yes.
And
100%.
I always liked that because it felt like that was one of those he thought he was doing the right thing only for it to be proven like sometimes there's some things that just can't be fixed or someone you can't save. The
Right.
problem with this one is he could have so easily saved him.
I mean, I think the idea is that the tornado is there and Superman can't stop a tornado. Okay, he can't technically stop a tornado, maybe. I mean, maybe he
But
could because
he can
but he
run
could
fast and he can save Jonathan.
right, and then that becomes the issue at this point. Jonathan telling him not to do it, I get that, and that works for me because that's actually sacrificial. Jonathan being like, I feel so strongly about this that I would rather die than have you reveal yourself.
Yeah.
That's how scared he is of the world, and it's understandable, dude. That's the whole point of the story. Point of this movie potentially is getting to that point, but Clark is not there to understand that. And if that's the case of like using that as the impetus for Clark going, okay, I'm ready now. It doesn't even work that way because Clark isn't ready still. After that, he's like, I'm not gonna. It doesn't.
It
He's gonna.
doesn't work.
It doesn't. It does not work overall. I will give it that.
Yeah.
So
And
I'll agree on that.
and I think again, I also blame the structure of the movie. Because us knowing that he's been a nomad who still says the world isn't ready while trying to save people while also having it in the back of his head that the world is not ready for him just doesn't really make sense.
Right. Right.
It just doesn't quite land. Um, I wish that everything else in the movie from here on worked better, but like it's about the point where I start to fall off because this happens and it's in the back half of the second act. Because once we get through the Smallville fight, my brain turns off. And I am just disconnected from the last 20 so minutes of the movie. And it's really frustrating because I'm actually pretty with it until I'm not.
Okay.
And
That's fair.
I think it just becomes, again, like Blockbuster, the movie by a big studio company that you've seen every time in the 2000s and 2010s, where it's bombastic and big. And it's like, cool, man. But like, also, couldn't Clark like save some people along the way and stuff like that to like try to? And I know it's supposed to be, oh, it's his first day on the job. He's not been Superman, and like, why would he know that? And I get that, I do. But because it's so loud and bombastic, and like, we've just watched this clip where he let Jonathan die. And now all this shit is happening, and you're telling me he's not trying to save literally anyone around him
Except for
is
Machina.
real weird.
Except for
It's
Machina,
real
which
weird.
starts the battle in the first place.
Yeah.
With Machina. I get
Like,
that.
I don't know. And it just doesn't work for me. And I think that because of that, it just becomes kind of like CGI noise.
I
Um,
get that. I mean, I think he does protect the soldiers at some points, and he gets to that aspect of it.
again, post Smallville.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay. All right.
Because
Okay.
I
I guess.
like the Smallville stuff, because
Right.
you're right. Like, the
Right.
Smallville stuff he does.
Right. Okay. I guess that makes sense. And yeah, I will say again, trying not to go too far ahead, because I do actually prefer the Metropolis battle in Batman vs Superman, seeing it from Batman's point of view.
Sure.
I like that aspect of it because it actually adds to it. And they actually build on that using that case and scenario. But I can see what you mean about that. I still
Yeah.
appreciate it because I think it's well, like the action is really good action. I think I have a lot of fun watching the battle itself, and I love seeing. Again, by the way, speaking of casting, they just never do wrong with casting Perry White. Lawrence
No,
Fishburne,
dude, Lawrence Fishburne's stupid good in this.
another great moment, and him trying to protect his people. He
Mhm.
actually probably has the most shining moment of any Perry White, honestly, throughout the entire franchise. Well done, really well done.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, he also goes toe to toe with Lois a lot in this, which I really like. The him like sending her on leave for 2 weeks and she's not going to get compensated, and then he goes, "Let's make it 3 because you're being so agreeable with me."
That's what I love too. Not because not only
Yeah,
is he going toe to toe with her, but you see how much he actually cares for her. And
yeah,
like it's not like this, it's not this like you could have it easily be, I'm in charge, I can't run an alien story, that's ridiculous. But he like gets in, he's like, I know you, and this is important to you. I don't agree with you, but I really, really respect you. And I want you to like be yourself and tell me what's really going on here. I'm going to use whatever I have to make sure you're on the right page. But I really respect who you are as a person,
right.
even when you sell out to another guy with the alien story. I gets
Mhm.
pissed at that. But I do love that. Yeah, like the how about three? Because you're being so agreeable. So just like that, you're dropping it just like that. Like he knows that she found more important to the story. She actually found the story. That's the best
Yeah,
part. He knows that she found Superman. He got probably had an interview with him and is letting it go for that reason. And he's like, you don't just let this go like that.
no,
So you must have found something and you must have your reasons for keeping it. So I am going to completely believe you and count on you to be making the right choice.
yeah,
I love that aspect because that actually showcases the relationship really well.
it really does. I like it a lot. It's one of the best moments in the movie.
No.
Um, Fishburne's honestly, he might be my favorite Perry White.
Yeah, I think so too. Mine too,
Yeah,
honestly.
I really do. I really like the casting. I think he's really, really quite good in it. Um,
And it's nice to
I
have him because it is that like everybody talks about the human side of Superman that isn't shown as well. That's the
mhm,
humanity there is shown through Perry White, honestly. Perry White and Lois to a degree, but that's
yeah.
like that side of things which helps bolster that part of it, I think.
Now, here's something that I'm gonna say that might surprise you,
Ooh,
and it
okay.
might surprise a lot of people. While I
Okay.
may not like the stuff in the 3rd act fully, I really think that Superman killing Zod ends up being the crux of the film in a way that I think people that are hard on the moment refuse to give it credit for. And I think it's ultimately one of the most important things in the movie, because so much of the film is about how Superman doesn't know his people. He doesn't, he doesn't know where he came from. They really lean on that fact that, like, his last fight with Jonathan before he dies is about how Jonathan is not his father and all of these things. And so he finally finds his people. He finally has people. And it turns out that the guy who is the villain in this is a fucking maniac general who is willing to wipe out the entirety of Earth to recreate Krypton. And
Right.
Clark has to decide that the last remaining people of his people has to die, and his hope of meeting more, and like his world coming back has to die in order for the Earth to live. And it's like it's a very serious move. It's a very serious moment in which you don't put Superman in moments like that normally, because
Right.
we don't want to see Superman kill.
Right.
I do think people overblow this because it's either he kills Zod or the world dies. And I really think that Clark handles it because it's the one moment also where he does save a family, because Zod is 100% going to murder these people if Clark doesn't do something about it.
I really want to throw out there. I've been everybody has criticized that move from the get go, and I
I
am
know.
completely on board with you. Like I always read, like, well, he could have put his hand in front of the heat vision. He could have stopped him in so many different ways. That's not the point. The point is that they are so evenly, not only evenly matched, but Zod is actually more than him, because like everybody kind of
Way
misses the
more.
case. He is a general warrior with the same powers as Superman. Superman is a farm boy who has never battled anybody in his life, especially anybody with the powers that like he's never had that incident where anybody could match him. So in this first fight where he's against not only Zod, but all the Zod other superhero powers, he is faced with a choice to either stop Zod. The only way to stop Zod is if even if he stops it momentarily,
Yeah.
Zod's going to keep going. Zod's not stopping until you. He said it basically. I'm not going to stop until you kill me. Pretty much. That's it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is Zod has told him
Right.
one way or another, I am going to kill you in this world if you do
Right.
not kill me.
Absolutely. There's no holding. We don't have a prison that can hold you. Clark doesn't have like a prison he can hold Zod at this point. It's kill or watch the world die. And Superman, in that case, I think he does make the choice to kill. And I think it's okay to do it. And I might be, people don't like that. And whatever, it is what it
Look,
is.
I do get it. I get
I do
not
too.
wanting to yeah,
Get
I
it.
get it. I do. I get not wanting to see Superman kill.
Hmm.
But also, I think there's times to push a character, and this is one of those times where I actually think it's okay. And
Hmm.
again, it's not like we haven't seen him kill on film before. It's just done a lot more comically in Superman 2.
Yeah, so he killed Zod Superman too. No one had it's about that at all. That's exactly. I go, oh, he went into a prison. No, he got thrown into a never-ending abyss. Let's be honest with ourselves. He's human. Zod was human at that point. He wasn't surviving the fall, my friend.
Yeah. No, he wasn't. He knew what he was doing.
100%. So, like, you can miss me with that aspect of it. If you love the original Donner movies and that for that reason, like whatever, then you could miss me on this. Instead a little more graphically, like right away the broken neck, but like this is the same aspect of it.
Hmm. Oh, 100%. Um, I do like the stuff involving Diane Lane quite a bit in this
Yes.
as
Yes.
Martha. Um, all the little moments with her are really good. The reporter came to see me bit, and Clark going, "Oh, don't worry, she's a friend," and her being like, "Oh, really?" And not like that. Like she's immediately like, "Is my
Yeah.
boy finally settling down?" and stuff like that.
Right. Right.
Um, Diane Lane is wonderful. She's a
Yes.
good actress, man, and
Yes.
like I'm really glad that she's in this. I think she grounds the movie a lot.
Agreed.
Um, yeah, yeah, she's real good in this. What else do you have, man?
Oh, I got some
Because
stuff. Yeah, I can
you got some
break down
stuff.
some stuff.
Oh,
I
you know
do.
what? Real quick before we
Go
get
ahead.
into that stuff, if you haven't already, I'm gonna plug it now because I don't want people going to the end of the podcast and hitting pause. If you haven't already, guys, and you haven't subscribed and this is your first time here, hit that button right below us because that means that you like being here and you'll do it again and you keep coming back. Also, if you haven't already, we do have a Patreon where you can go right now and you can get 5 episodes of this show that are not on the YouTube channel where we are talking the MCU. We have talked Iron Man through the Avengers. We got Iron Man 3 coming to you next week. It's going to be great. So hit that Patreon button, hit like, hit subscribe, follow us on all the socials, do the thing. It's all below. Check us out.
I love you, man. I love
I
you. Thank you
love
so
you
much for
too. I
it.
know that we always save it to the end, and I keep thinking that that's the moment everyone turns us off. So if I do it
Yeah,
in the middle of the show, they can't turn us off.
it's a good idea. That's probably what we're supposed to do. I'm just not a very good official podcaster, I guess. But
No,
or is that
I'm going to start throwing it into random parts of the show so they can't get around it. Hit the Patreon. That way you guys
oh,
know that there's,
that's
5
right.
more
Or
episodes with a 6th on the way.
or you can join the YouTube membership as well. It's another way you can do it as well. So
I always
absolutely.
forget about the YouTube
And
membership.
that's kind of newish for me, but it is
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So, okay. So some notes that I do have throughout. I kind of haven't mentioned them. I mentioned the Michael Shannon casting. Love that delivery of the manicness of his
I will
delivery.
find him.
Exactly. Because he does it like, and he repeats it 3 times. I will find
Yeah.
him. I will find him. I will find him. And it's like, okay, we get it. But it
Oh,
works.
he's angry.
But
He's
it
an
works for the
angry
character.
elf.
He is an angry elf. Absolutely. I do love that. I love, you mentioned Diane Lane. I love the moment, the flashback where young Clark gets his powers, like it's in the classroom, and he like
Mhm.
runs to the closet, and they have this great moment where Diane Lane's like, picture yourself on an island, and appear.
Mhm.
It's like it shows his case of like, oh, this is a beautiful, loving moment of Mom Kent and Clark. It shows some of that humanity that like people say is missing from the character. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's right there. It showcases just enough of it that that's the part that they are raising him the way that he's supposed to be raised.
I
He's
really
questioning,
do.
but
Yeah.
he's there.
I like that moment a lot,
Mhm.
with one small caveat.
Okay.
I don't know if it's just me, but because I grew up in the school system, because my family's been involved in the school system for so long, you're telling me that the fucking teacher is gonna let the entire class stand around that door instead of taking them anywhere
Fair.
else? Like,
Fair.
it drives me nuts. I'm just sitting there going, "You're telling me that you're gonna let everyone stand around this and let it happen and mock
Right.
this kid who's clearly having a fucking anxiety attack and shit?
Right.
Come on."
Right.
All those kids need to go back to the classroom while you're dealing with the situation, and I
Right.
know that that's so stupid, but it's one of those things that drives me nuts just because I've been around that stuff for so long that all I could think is, "Are you fucking kidding me? Take those kids back in the classroom, away from this situation," especially after she burns her hand on the door.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think it's supposed to be a visualization of Clark having so much noise around him. I think that's
Well,
partially what's
here's the
supposed to
thing.
be. I get it. I agree
You're
with you.
right, but you know what? You can still do it if they're in the classroom because he can still hear everything.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. It's not as visually much,
No, I
but
know.
the visualization of it, and Snyder's a visual director, so I guess that's what the point is. But I don't disagree
Well,
with you. I think you're absolutely right. It doesn't bother
yeah,
me as much, but I understand exactly what
it
you're saying.
drives me nuts every time I watch it. I'm like, "Come on, man, get the other kids out of there, like, move them away."
Absolutely. Okay, I want to also throw out there one moment. We mentioned the Costner shitty moment about the tornado. I did love a couple of his deliveries, and one of the specifically that I still love is the part where he's like, "Can I just pretend I'm your son?" Or,
Mhm.
not, "You are my son." And like that's a moment that was like tailor crafted for Costner to
Yeah,
deliver, and
that
he delivers it so well.
that one and we took this to the s they took the little metal piece from Krypton, with the Superman symbol on it, and he goes, "We took it to this scientist, and he said it wasn't on the periodic table. It means it's not of this earth, son," is just like the way he delivers that line is so good. Again, I hate that scene before it, but I
Right.
like the entirety of that sequence right after,
Yeah.
when
Right.
they're talking about finding him and stuff like that. That's all great. I
And
just wish it wasn't started with, "You probably should have let those kids die in the bus," because Jonathan's a fucking prick.
he also has the good moment, like afterwards they come back to it after the tornado sequence. We kind of flash back to a different time when Clark was being bullied for
Yeah,
briefly, and he had that scene with him that it kind of actually was reminiscent of the Donner Superman when Clark like the football thing kind of was like, well, you wanted to hurt him. I know you'd want to hurt him. What would that have done? Kind of thing. It's like the nice
yeah,
little touching moment there as well. But it also showed this was him. The way they did it this time was also about showing Jonathan's the one I inferred from the line you named,
right.
the idea of like of I'm scared what's going to happen. What would have happened if you had done that? Do you realize what would have happened if you had hurt them? Like this is you have to control yourself at that
Yeah.
point. Um, and he has to be in control, which is what the entire movie is about for him. Um, let's see what else we got. Oh, you know
Which
what we
is
haven't
why we
mentioned yet?
totally end it with him killing Zod, which seems to go against the nature of it, but also it works, I think. Again,
It does, because that's the control he's talking about. Because he
yeah,
knows he's making a conscious choice that I
yeah.
don't wanna do this, please don't make me do this. This is against everything I've been taught, but this has to happen, and I have to
You're
be
forcing my
Superman.
hand. Yeah.
Yes, I have. One thing we haven't discussed at all, Hans Zimmer score.
Yeah, I wasn't going
Hans
to.
Zimmer score. Oh, you weren't going to, huh?
I
Are you?
you know how I feel. I
I
I wish I liked it more.
I can't believe you don't. I am so shocked that you don't. Not that I knew it,
I know.
but I've always been so shocked at this because to me, I'm like, you're following up John Williams, the GOAT, the God, everything
Yeah.
else. And to me, I think Hans Zimmer has done an amazing job of creating nearly as iconic of a theme. Um,
I think that it's atmospheric at the right moments, but it is so forgettable that I'd never hear it after I stopped watching the movie.
I can't believe that because I actually hear it almost as much as I hear the John Williams. When I hear
No,
like the
I
trailer
don't.
music and stuff. I think it's a phenomenal score.
I
Um,
I I love
the
that you
theme
love it.
specifically, the theme specifically.
Yeah. I love
Um,
that you love it. Uh, I desperately want to. I for over a decade, I've wanted to see what you guys see, and this is the one thing that I
you recognize you're on like an island
yeah,
with that. That's like one of the only things that's ever been like
I
completely
it's the
positive
one
about
thing
is their
yeah,
score.
I genuinely I don't know what it is. No, I know what it is, and it's unfair. It's unfair. It's that the Williams theme and just that is what Superman is to me. And I just like the score works fine. I just don't find it as listenable or as iconic or as standoutish as everyone else seems to. I do like the first flight music. I
Mm,
think the first flight sequence is great, and I think that it is built off of the fact that the music is really good. But I also just as quickly forget it, which is the problem. And it's weird, man, because you know me. I'm very much a audio
right.
like person. I love music. I
I
love
know.
it's funny because I talk to people about that all the time and they don't even hear the score. They don't even recognize it. They don't think about it. And it's like to me, I'm always thinking about it. But for whatever reason it is with this one, like every time it washes over me by the time it's over and I just don't remember it.
Yeah. I it's hard for me to
Yeah.
conceptualize that, honestly.
And it's weird because I don't like feeling like this because I don't think it's a bad score by any means. It's just one that doesn't do anything for me. And I mean, the truth of the matter is it's also not that surprising because I don't love a lot of late stage Zimmer stuff because I
Yeah.
also don't like most of the stuff that he did for like Interstellar or most of the Nolan
The
films.
fact that you don't like Interstellar Story is so mind-boggling to me. It's
I
so
don't.
funny. Like, I understand, like, I get we all have our own things and everything else, but, like, we're usually on board,
I know.
at least on the same book, if not necessarily the same page. We're in the same
Right. It
chapter
may not be
usually.
the same chapter, but we're
Right.
usually within the same book.
Right. But we're, like, in different libraries when it comes to this. It's different cities' libraries. It's like, I I I can't fathom it. It's so unfathomable to me, but
I'll call myself out on it right now because I feel like people think I'm joking, but it's like, no, this is really true. And Paul's known me long enough. He knows I'm not doing it to be contrarian.
not at all.
I just don't gel with Christopher Nolan. I
Mhm.
don't. It's very much like Stanley Kubrick, where I can appreciate the work, but I don't necessarily attach to it
Yeah.
because he's such a cold filmmaker that I have a hard time latching on to the stuff he's made.
Right.
And so I weirdly, because of that, don't like most of his movies.
Right.
My favorite being The Prestige, which is arguably one of his coldest in some capacity, and yet I love it.
Right.
Um, but like Batman Begins is good because it is actually pretty human, and that kind of ends with the stuff of his that I like really, really like outside of Tenet. And I'm the
Mhm.
weird person who like I fucking love Tenet.
That's the funniest thing to me. Of all the Nolan movies, like that's Tenet's the one because like that's like probably one of the most I don't know, derided is not the right word, but the people
It's
don't love that one
yeah,
comparatively.
and yet it's the one where I'm like, man, I could watch Tenet forever. Although I will say, I really, really liked, um, I really liked Oppenheimer.
Okay, that's cool.
And that surprised me because I went in ready to hate Oppenheimer, and
Fair.
I really, really liked it for an entire 3 hours, and it actually had a really great score on top of it.
Yes. Are you looking forward to the Odyssey?
No,
No, not at
not
all.
even a
Okay,
little
fair
bit.
enough.
I mean,
I
am
just
I
wanted
gonna
to know.
watch it? Yes.
Okay,
Am I gonna be blown away by it?
maybe.
Maybe. Um, do I worry that it's going to be kind of boring and plotting like a lot of his other movies? Also, yes. Um, and that sucks because I actually think that the biggest problem with Nolan is he doesn't know how to shoot action. Tenet was the first time that I was like, oh, it's finally coming around. Like, I love Batman Begins.
Right.
The action is not great in that movie,
Interesting. Okay.
and I think it's actually worse in The Dark Knight, which is weird because like there's some great stuff in it, but like the action is not what's good. It's the character work that's good.
Okay. Okay.
Um, like, yeah, he flips a truck, but what like the rest of the stuff in that movie, I couldn't really tell you about most of the action beats,
Okay.
and it's a Batman movie.
What about Inception? Don't love it. Okay. Okay. The action beats. I'm saying specifically the action beats. Not
Oh,
the other
the
movie.
action beats are fine.
Okay.
The rotating hall sequence is great, but
Right.
like
Okay.
that's a single action beat.
Okay. Fair. Okay. Just kind of curious.
It's a weird thing, man. Like I know that I'm on this like weird island about it, but I've been living that island for so long, and it's funny because I know that in our fantasy chat, again, bringing it up, I am not the only one who feels this way because the Deacons also
Yeah. Are not. Not
are
loving.
not
Uh-huh.
the biggest fans either, and so it's good to know that I'm not alone in it, and yet I feel so alone, and I hate saying it out loud because I know that there's going to be people who get real upset when they listen to me say this stuff.
Right.
But I'm trying not to be a dick, and I don't think he's a bad filmmaker. He's just not my filmmaker.
Hey, I get that. We all have our own specific things. I mean, he's definitely not the warm and fuzzier filmmaker. Like Joe Johnston's a warm and fuzzy kind of filmmaker in that
Yeah,
way.
Spielberg.
Spielberg, warm and fuzzy kind of filmmaker that way. And that's your road, and that's fine. It's funny. The funny part for me is that I am also loving that kind of stuff too. But for whatever reason, Nolan's brilliance does speak out to me in that way. I probably prefer a Spielberg or Johnson kind of film, but
Yeah.
I definitely love I think there's a lot of brilliance in Nolan's work, and I think it's
There is
well
a lot
done
of
film.
brilliance. I'm never going to say there's not.
Right.
Also, low key, and this is not a joke. You know what I would go ape shit for? A
What?
Chris Nolan directed horror film.
I would love to see that. I think he could really handle that very
Yeah.
well, honestly speaking. I would love to see that.
I'd lose my mind for that.
I
I
thought
really would.
I thought I read an interview, and this could be me being in my old age. I thought that he like wanted to do one or someone or his express interest in doing something like that, but it would be definitely a different kind of horror film. I don't know if he could deign himself to fall into that category because
Yeah.
some people look. I don't know. I don't know if I don't know about that because this is me. I don't want to project anything on him. There's a lot of obviously serious filmmakers who would never make a horror film because this is like a horror franchise.
Right.
I think we're starting to turn that around a little bit.
I do too.
I kind of feel like some people are more taking it a little seriously. They have to, of course, call it, whatever. What's that term they use?
The the new age horror term that I hate.
Yeah,
Elevated horror.
elevated horror. That we hate that.
I hate that fucking term.
Right.
I hate that
Exactly.
fucking term.
Um,
You're not wrong, and it's interesting because I remember before the Odyssey came out, all the rumors. One of the big rumors was he was doing a horror film.
right.
Then the other rumors was he was doing a thriller about helicopters or something. Remember that?
Yep.
It was
And he
all
was going
this
to do
weird
Bond
shit.
potentially as well.
Yeah,
The Bond River at one point.
yeah. But
Which
no,
still
now
could
he's doing the
happen.
Odyssey. Look, here's what I will say. I can't wait to see the Odyssey because he's shooting it completely in IMAX, and I think the scale alone is going to be mind blowing.
Right.
And it's got a hell of a cast. I also am not like the biggest swords and sandal guy, so that's also part of where I'm like, it's fine. Like, if I want to watch a sword and sandals movie, like, I guess that'll do. Like, Kingdom of Heaven's probably the closest of like I really like a really good sword and sandal movie. Like, that'll be Kingdom of Heaven.
Right.
Maybe the original Ben-Hur if I'm feeling like old school epic.
Gladiator at all?
Yeah, and Gladiator. Well, it's fucking Gladiator. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. Just throw it out there.
Look, I almost might put on Gladiator 2 over it, though, just for the Denzel performance. I just love seeing Denzel in old-timey Rome doing his New York accent and acting like nothing else matters while the world burns around him. It's fucking amazing.
Hey, I love that aspect of the film too. I wish it
It's the
didn't
best
keep
part of the
showing.
movie.
I wish it didn't keep showing parts of the original film though. It's like here he is.
Oh my god. That is my biggest pet peeve in the entire world, and it drives me absolutely nuts. And that movie, like, makes the worst case for doing shit like this.
Yep.
Because in the beginning, it was fine. I
Right.
liked kind of the storybook thingy at the beginning of it,
Yeah,
telling the
that
story
makes
with
sense.
the art. It kind of reminded me of Spider-Man 2. Like, that was cool. That was fine. And then you kept showing me fucking scenes from it. Like, not like in passing. You're showing me full scenes from that movie. No, 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 no.
No.
Stop that. Like, do not remind me of the better movie at this
Right.
point. Like, let this movie just be. But oh
Exactly.
no, they couldn't do that.
It had no restraint whatsoever.
So
Um,
annoying.
it's funny. The same thing though can be said about Denzel Washington, and we praise him for having no restraint. But that's okay.
Well, it's because it's Denzel. Let's call it what it
Denzel being
is.
Denzel,
It's
right?
Denzel being Denzel. And now I really want to watch American Gangster.
Oh, good choice. Good choice. All right,
Also
got
featuring Man of Steel's Russell Crowe.
absolutely, absolutely. That's true. Um, few other things I have left. We'll finish up this Man of Steel podcast here. Or get going. I wanted to talk base. I love the fact that when Clark makes his decision to put on the suit, that's when he becomes Superman, and
Mhm.
he actually his demeanor is so much different. And I love the idea that he keeps the "I am a god above you, but I am going to be a benevolent god," and that's what kind of enters him in the Superman category. Like the idea when he's like got the handcuffs on, he's like, makes them feel better. But then Richard Schiff comes in, he's like, "Yeah, I know. I can see your badge to the I can see your badge in your pocket. You also got a half pack of Mentos or whatever." This guy, he's like, it's like this like declarative thing of like, "I'm going to show you exactly how powerful I am. That I don't need to be here. So I don't need to be here. I am here because I am choosing to be here, and I want to be here, and I want to work with you. I want to work with humanity. I am not your enemy, and I'm going to do everything I can to show you that. But I need you to know that if you're going to cross me, you're not, and you're not going to, you're going to try to like control me or whatever. That ain't going to happen."
That
Um,
scene's so good, dude.
yeah,
Harry
so
Lennox is fucking good in it too.
yes, absolutely. And it actually at the end there, that I was seeing with Harry Lennox at the end actually exactly proves my point too. He's like, because they
Yeah,
send up missiles and he blows up missiles. Like, look, we're gonna do it on my terms. I'm not gonna. You're not gonna invade my privacy. I will be there for you, but this is what's gonna happen. You're
that's
gonna
a
have to deal with it.
$12 million satellite. Was.
Was. I like the
I
humor
it's
also.
that's one of the better, like, I do get the people who say that this movie doesn't have a lot of humor. It doesn't. It's starkly serious,
Yeah, absolutely.
to a fault, I would argue, but that line makes me laugh every time.
And to follow with the female army person there with him.
He's kinda hot.
He's gonna and Harry Lennox. I love Harry Lennox's response to that, which isn't like the mad at
Get
things,
in the
kind of
car,
like,
Captain.
"Get in the car, Captain."
Yeah.
It's good. So I
That
do love
that
that.
is really good, actually.
Uh,
Again, I would argue that this movie is a little too serious for its own good, to a fault,
I
but
understand the aspect of it. Yeah.
because I would argue even Batman Begins has more humor,
Yes, 100%.
and I know that they're modeling themselves after that, so I wish it had leaned in that a little more,
Yeah.
just because there are times we need, especially in this movie where the 3rd act becomes so starkly serious and there's so much destruction. And I think that is why I wish that there was more of him saving people in it.
Mhm.
It's not because I think that the movie needs to, like, have Superman saving people to really just, like, make it a Superman movie. It's also more because I would anticipate there being levity in that situation.
Right.
And for how serious this is in a, like, "Oh my god, there's aliens in the middle of Metropolis. We don't know what's happening. We don't know why these things would be going on, and there's these, like, buildings falling and shit." I could have really used a little bit of, like, come down from that.
Right.
And that's a weird thing, but we talk a little bit about it on our Avengers podcast, plugging away. If you are on the Patreon, you've probably heard me talk about it. But, like, I do bring up that moment because that's the year before. So that was never even done as, like, an answer to this. But in that movie, you legitimately have this moment where Captain America makes it the point that they need to get these people out of the danger zone and, like, evacuate people and save people. And you have moments of, like, him saving people in a cafe and shit like that.
Mm. Yeah,
There
I
is
got it.
something fundamentally missing for me in the 3rd act that would lighten so much of this heavy load of this idea that people are in the middle of Metropolis are dying.
Right.
because of how serious the movie is, that it would probably help me not zone out as much, because I almost feel like it's like an emotional reaction to detaching myself.
Mm,
Going, there's just so much happening. It's so much movie. I needed something.
yeah. Yeah. I get that aspect of
Yeah.
it for sure.
So hopefully that makes sense without coming across as like an asshole about it. Because
Right.
I actually like this movie more than I might let on, because I think visually it's very beautiful. I think the cast is great. I just think that it gets so starkly serious because it so badly doesn't want to be the Chris Reeve films, that it
Right.
almost like
Overcorrect.
undermines its own self and overcorrects itself.
Right. I get that for sure. Last like bits, I have two other bits I wanted to say I had thrown out there. I do love the little bit of the ending where we go back to Clark and Pa Kent, and you have the nice touch with with the little kid with the red cape on, um, showcasing showcasing like his choice. Even back in the day, he was always destined to be Superman. In a way, I did like that bit of it, and I also like the finale part when Clark goes to Daily Planet and listing his reasons, just point blank listing his reasons. Like I think it's everyone kind of understood that's why he was a reporter. I just love
Right.
having him go like, I need to be aware. I need to be at a job where I can disappear. I need to have my ear to the ground on what's going on. It's him like choosing to be Superman even more explicitly saying, if I'm going to be Superman, I'm this hero. I have to know when when trouble's happening, and this is the job I can do.
Yeah, and I like that it's also him honestly choosing to be Superman
Right.
and not choosing to be Clark Kent, which
Correct.
is very interesting.
Yes, exactly. And love this is where Lois already knowing also plays a very cool
Yeah.
part in it as he gets into Perry introduces him to her and he's like there and she that knowing feeling. It's like, okay, cool. This is how we're establishing this as a
Yeah,
moving forward ever. So I love that aspect of it for sure.
I do
I
too.
think
I think I actually really like it. I like the ending a lot.
yeah.
That moment really works for me.
So I guess that's really it. I think we can get to ranking the film or rating the film now on a scale of 1 to 11 because we always turn things up to 11 here on PLD Projects. I'm very interested to see how this goes. Just for the record, for so far, Superman the movie, we both gave a perfect 11. Superman 2, the Donner cut, I gave a 9.5. You gave a 10. Superman 3, we both gave a 5. Superman 4, we both gave a 0.5. That's how bad that one was.
Uh,
Superman Returns is probably our biggest divisive moment where I gave it a 7.5 and you gave it a 10. Man of Steel, my friend, where do you fall on Man of Steel?
this is so fucking weird, because I feel like I'm so hard on the movie for all sorts of reasons, and yet I find myself so drawn to so much of it at the same time. And I feel like I have come around on it a lot. Christopher Maloney gives it at least an extra boost in its ratings because Christopher Maloney is awesome. His death scene, by the way, is one of the best when he decides that he was like, he basically, he wants his own honorable warrior's death, and he decides that he's going to crash that ship with
Yep.
her on it. Is such a great moment. He's
Yes.
so good. Uh, for as hard as it sounds like I am on this movie, I think it's much better than a lot of other people also give it credit for. Um, the stuff that doesn't work drives me nuts, but I also think that the stuff that really works makes it stands out. Even if I feel like the third act is kind of messy, I would still rather watch this than almost anything else in the franchise, outside of Superman and Superman Returns, and partially Superman 2, the Donner cut. I'm giving this a 9.5.
Damn. Okay. I'm very happy to hear that. All right.
Look at how happy you are. You're
I am
so
happy.
surprised.
I am surprised. And I've done this before too. I've been like kind of harder on films and they come out and go, yeah, but at the same time, overall, it's still a good film.
Yeah.
Uh, for me, this uh, maybe lost a little bit this viewing for me, surprisingly, as much as I'm defending it here.
Yeah.
I definitely have seen more of the seams a little bit as on this viewing than I have before. I've always been the biggest staunch defender of this film, and most of
You
our
really
chats
have been.
push on from that. But it didn't fall that far for me. So I'm still going to give it a solid 10 for me, 10 out of 11 for me.
Shit, I honestly thought we were going to end up both at 9.5, where I was about to throw something out the window, and I was like, there's no way that we rated it the same, because you really teed me up for like an even lower rating almost.
Yeah. I almost went down low. I used to call this a perfect film. Like, it was my second favorite. It's still my second favorite overall. Superman 2 and the Donner cut, I give it 9.5. It's pretty similar to me, but that's more nostalgia based, and yeah, it is what it is. I'll give it a solid 10 because I do enjoy it that much.
Yeah, I love that. I just like that I was not as far off as you were anticipating.
Yeah, I was expecting, honestly, I actually expected the exact reverse of Superman Returns. I thought you'd give it a 7.5 and I would give it a 10. And I'm giving it a 10, but then you give it a 9.5. So that actually makes me very happy.
Because I also am willing to admit that, like, for all its faults, I actually like it more than I don't. It matters to actually be able to be like, look, man, I can look past some of my own feelings to look at the movie itself.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
You do. Good for you.
And I do.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud
Thanks. Appreciate that. That's I don't know if you saw it the other day, but I actually I wanted to bring it up, and it's so silly, but part of why I love doing this is because I feel like it has allowed me to remind people how to kind of watch things, as weird as this might sound, and how people talk about stuff. And I actually, one of my friends who listens to the show, I call him my bar dad. He's commented on some of our videos and stuff in the past, but he was on Blue Sky the other day, and he made this comment about how I was showing him how to watch movies again. And he was like, I'm learning from my friend about how to enjoy movies because they are fun, not because they have social relevance, a moral bias, or award-winning acting, writing, directing, and producing, or even great continuity. Thus, I am looking forward to Jurassic World Rebirth because fun. He's a general hater of reboots and so many prequels and sequels, and he thinks that they can genuinely dilute things, but he's starting to learn now because of listening to me talk and the way that we do things on the podcast, or the conversations we have in like real life, that he's now coming around to like taking things as they are, not as he wants them to be. And he's learning to have fun with that shit. And it meant so much to me to have someone say that, because that's why we do this.
Absolutely.
That is why.
If we can like just influence one person, two people, even like, or just kind of get people to relook at their own way they do things, I think that's a wonderful thing, because we're both always been proponents about trying to take in what the film is presenting, not exactly necessarily what you want it to be. What is the film trying to say? What do they want out of it? And try to be positive about it. Look for the good in things, because it's hard to make films. Even when we trash films, we hate trashing films because we understand how hard it is to get these things made. And very rarely, extremely rarely, does it go on like that. Somebody tried their best and tried their hardest to make this film work. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't work. But at least give people the benefit of the doubt and try to look at things in a positive manner and enjoy what you enjoy, and don't shit on people who aren't enjoying things. Let them enjoy it. For example, like as many times as we destroyed Superman 4 on our podcast, I felt bad about it. I mean, I think it's a movie that should feel bad about being a movie. But I know someone out there actually really enjoys Superman 4. And you know what? I'm happy for them. I'm happy that they get a chance to really like that. I wish I could see what they saw. Because I want to like movies. That's the thing. We want to like movies. So I think that's a good place to start when you want to like movies. So
yeah, that's it, man. It's just about, I want people to be happy. I want you to enjoy movies the way that we just like the way we discover and enjoy them. I want you guys to see that too. So to everyone who continues to listen, thank you guys. Like, genuinely, we love doing this, even on the hard days. And the next two podcasts are going to be super interesting, because this is already like us wading into very territorial waters. And again, like if certain people discover this podcast and they listen to it and they want to yell and scream in the comments below, like, it is what it is. It's fine. Like, I don't think any of what we're saying is unfair. And I also have to remind you, we both rated this movie pretty high by the time we were all said and done too. So like, we also defended this film. We're not going to sit here and badmouth it and say it's a travesty or anything. So go into the next two also knowing, like, we both like the next two more than we don't. We're doing the director's cuts of both, just so you're aware. So if you want to watch these movies before they come out, like the podcast, I mean, it is going to be the director's cuts in the same way that we did the Donner cut. Like, we're doing the true vision of what was supposed to be seen through.
Absolutely.
That's what we're
Especially
wading
because
into.
if we did the theatrical version of Batman v Superman, we wouldn't actually be covering it because it's actually not a Superman film.
Yes, correct.
It's barely in it. I joke, I kid, kind of.
Kind of.
But yeah, the ultimate edition for Batman v Superman is definitely the definitive way to go. So we're going to watch that and take care of that. And Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I've only watched the one time, it is quite a long movie. So it is definitely quite a
4 hours. It's going to be I got to make
hours,
real
so.
time for this.
Right. But I'm really looking forward to one of the reasons I love doing this podcast is it gives me it gives me an excuse to rewatch something I might not give a chance to rewatch. This has definitely been a fun journey for us so far. And I can't wait for it to continue all the way through James Gunn Superman in July. Can't wait for that to happen as well. And again, next week, if you're on the Patreon, you get to see us cover Iron Man 3 as we continue on the MCU. That will eventually come to the main channel if you can't. I understand that Patreon, it's on your top. I understand that, but it's going to be a while. Well, we won't be doing the MCU on the main channel until probably December-ish at this rate. So come join us now and get the fun parts now.
Yeah, you'll have so many episodes before everything is said and done.
That's
and
right.
If you want more colorful commentary like this, where we yell and scream at each other, not really, but we have like really fun debates and talk about movies, like that's your place, man. We're having a lot of fun with the MCU stuff, and it's been a kind of fun reminder of like why we started this, to be honest.
Absolutely, 100%. We have a lot of fun stuff coming up too. More franchises to come. We're definitely going to do our Ghostbusters and Men in Black watch through, which is going to be cool. Combining those two franchises as one kind of fun little franchise. That's going to be a lot of fun to do for sure. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about these things. I love this thing. We got to go back to our horror roots eventually as well. And
That's part of why we chose Ghostbusters, actually.
Right.
Like, legitimately
Right.
was when we were talking behind the scenes about where to go after we finished Nightmare, we knew we were going to do Superman. It was always in the cards because we wanted to do it leading into the James Gunn film. And so we were like, well, yeah, we'll cover Superman. We'll do all the Superman stuff. And we realized how long that was going to be. And then it was like, well, we could go into some of the other horror franchises, but like that becomes, which one are we choosing? How do we want to do it? And it was like, well, why don't we do Ghostbusters and Men in Black, where there's like a tinge of horror to Ghostbusters and like a tinge of it to Men in Black in some capacity.
Right.
But also, like, I'm really excited to actually talk about those because I have such a love, obviously, for both those franchises, even in their lowest lows. Like, they're better than most things. And I'm also like really excited to go to bat for at least 3 of the movies that I think get hit and derided on more than they deserve. I'll let you guys decide which ones those are before we get to it, but you might be surprised.
Yeah. Definitely something to look forward to for sure. And also something to look forward to is if you haven't seen us so far, when we cover an entire franchise, we don't just stop there. When something comes out new, we try to take the bonus track. Like, for example, we recently covered Final Destination Bloodlines when it came out in the theaters because we had already covered the Final Destination franchise. We are going to cover Ballerina because we covered the John Wick franchise. That's coming out. And, of course, later this year, Conjuring Last Rites is coming up. So we're going to finish out the Conjuring saga that we started a long time ago. Always try to reconnect on those films, even if it takes a break. I would have to split up a franchise watch through. It's kind of nice to do for us. Absolutely. Yeah, that's gonna do it for us, folks. Where can the folks find you, PJ?
You guys can find me wherever social medias are sold at PJ_Campbell, mostly over at Blue Sky and Instagram. I don't really go to the bad place these days. No real shock. It just keeps circling the drain. So find me in Blue Skies.
Find me also at Blue Sky. I visit the bad place occasionally, but mostly I'm at home at Blue Sky. Find me all over this channel. My name is on the tin, as Matty Gunner likes to say. On over Holy Snokes, my Star Wars podcast. I do a podcast about the franchise V, and we're going to do some V adjacent stuff soon. I'm also going to kind of cover films or projects that were either inspired by V or inspired V or involved cast members of V. I know Independence Day is going to be one we're going to do. And we're going to do the Watchers 1 and 2 because Surprisingly
Nice.
enough, Watchers has Michael Ironside in it. Watchers 2 has Mark Singer in it. So it's Sam Tyler and Mike Donovan back to back. And even though they have nothing to do with each other, fun stuff like that. We're gonna have some
I love it.
additional stuff like that. And let's see, my Crown Jewels Queen podcast I do, and of course Class Action, which is we're gonna do at the end of June. We do that monthly. That's gonna be a fun one. We are doing the Mission Impossible Battle Royale. All the Mission Impossible films will enter a steel cage. Which one comes out? It's going to be depending on the categories, my friend, and depending on a very spirited debate, as I'm sure is going to happen. Yeah,
Spirited debates, never.
never. So hope you guys had a good time, and we will see you next time here on Tubular Geeks on Film for Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
It would be better if Christopher Maloney was in it.
Well, everything's better with Christopher Maloney.